And I
Yeah,
remember I gained about
absolutely.
20 pounds because you got up and started cooking breakfast. It didn't take
Well,
long. We've been together 26 years. I figured out my problem, people. That's what I wanted to tell you. That's the nugget. I figured out my problem, and you're looking at it. ME, capital ME. Same problem I've had everywhere else in my life, with my relationship with my son, with coworkers, with bosses, with people in general in the world. People before we met, I did my own laundry. It just happened to be all in the same wash load. I know you talked about that.
yeah, I remember one time when you were gonna do the laundry for us, and you threw my red sweater in with some white things, and they came out pink things, and I was like, never mind, I will do the laundry from now on. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grace Every Day, a podcast for Christian wives of blue collar guys. Today, I've got special guest Mack Story, my very own blue collar guy. And today's topic is all about increasing influence with your spouse. So I figured what better person to bring on than the expert in terms of increasing influence. Now, what's interesting is that I have done no pre-scripting. Mac was just asking me, he's like, do you have questions in advance? I'm like, nope, because this way it's just going to be a real authentic conversation. And I'm not sure what he's going to say. So buckle your seatbelt, guys and
Hey,
gals. This is interesting.
I don't know what you're going to say. You might be planning to throw me under the bus. You don't need to prepare for that.
That's not true. Well, welcome to the show, Mac Story.
Thank you for sharing your folks with me. I'm glad to be on here. I'm glad what you're doing. I remember when you told me you were doing this new podcast, Grace Every Day, for Christian wives of blue collar guys. I instantly liked it. Thought it's a great idea for you to share whatever you want to talk about. And I've been checking out your other episodes. I watch them and been enjoying those because you got the full spectrum, right? You're talking about all dimensions of life.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's important because all of those dimensions of life are interconnected, and they all impact us. And so, today we're talking about increasing your influence with your spouse, but that absolutely affects, your relationship with your children and that home environment. It's also going to impact how you feel at work if you're in the workplace, or how he feels at work, because, you can't take part of yourself to work. So what happens at home impacts us at work, certainly, and vice versa. So yeah, I think it's important to talk about all of those dimensions. So for your knowledge, last podcast episode was talking about the ladder of influence, just kind of an overview of those 5 steps for climbing to the next level and beyond. And yeah, let's just dial into some practical tips of how Christian wives can increase their influence with their blue collar guy. Love to hear your thoughts and perspective on that.
Well, I'm going to lead with questions, Ria. How did I do that with you? What's some of for the folks that don't know, we'll be celebrating 25 years of marriage this year, and been together 26 years. Met Ria on June 16th, 2000. We got married on October 27th, 2001, and so 25 years, big celebration coming up this year. We celebrate every day, though, Ria.
Yeah, we do.
And today, that's a lot of it, but just going back in time, I mean, I can talk about what I do, and I will share, but there's no one can talk about how I influence you more than you. You know what I'm doing more than I do. Probably, you definitely know when I'm getting it wrong.
Well, we can drill down into that, and vice versa, right? Let's also make sure that we talk about how I increase my influence with you, uh, or sometimes I'm sure I get it wrong, and so those are just the not just the wins, or not just the times when we get things right, but sometimes it's sharing the mistakes we made that help people learn and grow too. I know I learned more from my mistakes than successes. So yeah, so diving right in, just share if you can, just some of the things that you remember that have stood out over the years, ways that I've increased my influence with you. No right or wrong answer here. Just things that stand out as you look back. Big
Oh,
things, little things, whatever.
oh, look at her, folks. I asked her a question. She never answered. Now she asked me a question. She just put me all over the spot. But uh, the things I've done to influence you over the years, or you said things that you done to influence me. So
Yeah. What are things I've done to increase my influence with you?
yeah, and it it goes back to the folks who don't know. I don't know if you've ever talked about the five love languages on your show
Mm-mm.
yet, on this show, on the Grace Everyday podcast, but that's something you might want to talk about following this show potentially, so people can get a little deeper dive in it. But that's one of the key pieces. Someone gave us that book for a wedding gift, right?
Yep.
And we read it, and probably read it since then. I can't remember exactly, but I remember those love languages. And the main thing was that we talked about it and figured out each other's love language. And for me, it's acts of service and quality time. I like spending time with you,
Mm-hmm.
and acts of service. I like all those nice things you do for me, and you like doing them. So actually, what I'm getting at is when each person in the relationship gets in alignment with the other one's love language, and you can tell those five in a second, because you're gonna tell your two, and I'm telling my two, and then there's only one left, so they'll kind
Right.
of figure them out. But it's a lot deeper than that. But understanding it and aligning with it, you do that so well. You take care of everything in the house. And I remember your last podcast that I listened to was one you were talking about food and eating. And you were talking
Mm.
about when we first got together, I didn't hardly eat anything. I didn't have any dishes and all that stuff. And I told you I wasn't, you didn't have to cook. But if you
Yep.
did, I wasn't cleaning dishes. And I wasn't saying it to be rude to you or anything like that. I'm just saying, if you expected me to cook, don't cook, because I don't want to clean up all the time. But you're welcome to do
Sure.
it if you want to do it. And we were just getting started. I don't even know if we had read the book by then. Wasn't he married? Probably. No, we wasn't even
Mm-mm.
married at that point, so we hadn't seen the book. But in a way, I was kind of telling you my love language. In a way, I was saying it, not really in a meaningful way. But when you started doing it, I did appreciate
Mm.
it, right? And I
Yeah.
remember I gained about
Absolutely.
20 pounds because you got up and started cooking breakfast. It didn't take
Well,
long. I went I
that's
went from
funny.
eating I went from eating tuna sandwiches and chicken noodle soup and whatever else I might scrounge up to having some good homemade cooked meals. When I met Ria, she was 19, but she could cook like somebody's grandma, and she could cook all them home cooked meals. They were so good. But she'd get up and cook like a good country breakfast, and that's my favorite meal. And before Ria, I wouldn't even eat breakfast before I went to work. And even after that, these days I don't. I'd rather, if I got to get up early to eat breakfast before I go do something, I'd rather just skip breakfast and sleep just a few minutes longer. But acts of service is one of those things, and you've done that throughout our entire time together. 26 years almost we've been together, 25 married almost, and that's one of the things you've done from beginning to end. You're always doing little things, and you do so many things I would never ask you to do. I certainly wouldn't expect you to do them, and that's where a lot of people get it wrong. A lot of people in relationships expect their spouse to do
Mm-hmm.
certain things that the spouse don't want to do, but they expect it, and then because they expect it, they don't even appreciate it a lot of times because they expect it. They think this is something you're supposed to
Right.
do. Like,
Mm.
I can tell the folks listening, you've always done the laundry. Now, before you showed up, before we met, I did my own laundry. That just happened to be all in the same wash load. I know you talked about that.
Yeah, I remember one time when you were gonna do the laundry for us, and you threw my red sweater in with some white things, and they came out pink things, and I was like, never mind, I will do the laundry from now on.
Yep. But you've always done those things. Like even today, little things Rhea does whenever I shave in the shower to keep it simple. I can rinse off real easy and got a mirror in there, and a lot easier than shaving at the sink. So I shave in the shower, always have, and whenever my shaving cream is getting close to running out, a brand new one will magically appear. Rhea, you got anything to do with that?
Yeah, well, it's easy to just, pay attention to when it's kind of getting low. And I love, these specific examples. I think what you're saying is that underlying principle of making deposits into the relationship by speaking your language intentionally, right? If you are an acts of service person and quality time, and then just being intentional with making sure I'm putting a deposit into that relationship of those two things specifically. Because what's interesting is we tend as people to talk in our love language, and it's learning to how to talk in the other person's love language, because your two love languages are not my two love languages. And so I had to kind of be intentional about that, because it just didn't come naturally to me to do those things that really helped you feel like I was trying to just again put a deposit into that relationship.
Yep, and you don't do it just with a shaving cream. You do it with the toothpaste, with my deodorant, with everything I use anywhere around the house. You always over delivering. And again, folks, I would never ask her to do any of these things. If she stopped doing them, I would never ask her to do them again or anything like that. I'd have to figure out though why did she stop doing them, because she'd done them all these years. Something's going on if she stopped doing that. I made a withdrawal in that trust account somehow and figure out what I had messed up. But the thing is, it is my love language, and acts of service, quality time. But uh, even then, it's part of the why behind it, because I do appreciate it, and I appreciate it because I say it. No matter how many times you do it, I always express appreciation. And I mean, Ria will be doing laundry, and if she comes through the house if I notice it, sometimes I'm busy making a video or doing something on social media on my phone, I may miss it. But if I catch her coming through the house with a handful of laundry, either going to wash it or putting it away, I'm saying thank you every time. Whenever I eat stuff she's cooked, or she makes a lot of homemade juices that we drink. Got me eating healthy and drinking healthy. Eric started that, but Eric ain't the one that makes them juices all the time. That's you doing that, and I appreciate it. And but some people, they might like somebody to do that, but the why is wrong. Somebody may
Mm,
think I'm special, or I'm the man. If you're the husband, I'm the man. She's supposed to do that, and that's her job. And that ain't gonna build a lot of trust if I would come across that way with a Ria.
mm-mm. Yeah, and like you said, when it's required or expected, then it's not appreciated because it's not seen as something above and beyond. So it's if you take it for granted, right, then it comes across differently. So yeah, that's an impactful point.
And in the quality time, we don't like watch what I call a bunch of junk TV shows and things like that. But you and I watch a lot of movies. Unfortunately, we've discovered the streaming movies where they got like it takes a bunch of Saturdays or Sundays to get through all these movies. But and then you got to remember what happened the last 30 episodes ago or whatever. But it makes it easy when you find a good one. You ain't got to search for movies all the time. Watch a bunch of bad movies trying to find a good one. So that's the way we spend quality time. But a lot of times sometimes when I go hiking or I go biking, sometimes I know you go when you normally wouldn't go because you've already done it at 4 o'clock in the morning while I was still sleeping, right? We go on
Well,
we go on a lot of trips. We take extra time when we're traveling and go walking and talking and doing all these sort of things. But I mean, we set up our whole life to be together. I mean,
hmm
in the big picture, you joining me doing this is like you giving me like the ultimate quality time. You chose to join me in doing things your way, and but we got yours and mine and ours, as you say, where you do some stuff that I ain't involved in. I do some stuff, not very much that you're not involved with, but some things, and then most of what we do, we're both involved in it. So
hmm
in the big picture, our whole life, the quality time is the whole design of our life. We created that around. So what's yours?
well, one of the things that you touched on, it was interesting because you are super good about just appreciating. And that's something that stands out is that you don't take things for granted, right? You don't have that expectation that I will do things for you. You're very grateful and appreciative, but what is the saying? Always, always appreciated, but never expected, I think is when it goes. And I forget who said it. But that's powerful, right? Because the minute that you start to take it for granted, then I stop wanting to do it. So I've never really thought about that in those words before, but that's absolutely true. But you're good about the other things, like words of affirmation is my love language. And so, it's funny over the years, like as we've stopped um, really doing a lot of gifts for one another, we don't do
And that's a
birthday
language,
gifts. It
right?
is.
Don't skip that part. That's the gifts is not either one of our languages. So we save a lot of money, folks, because neither one of us buys the other one gift because we don't care.
Right, and when we realized that it wasn't super important to either one of us, then it was like, well, why are we doing that? So we celebrate, birthdays or things like that with making memories. It's just one way that we are intentional about what do we really value. And so, but you've really good, like with, back in the day when we still did gifts, like you would always pick up a card and it was always thoughtful. But some of the most memorable words of affirmation were like when you just sat down and wrote the letter yourself. Like it wasn't a store-bought card, it was a notebook sheet with paper, a notebook piece of paper that you just sat down and wrote.
Are you
Because
saving those
that was,
things?
yes, I saved them.
You got a pile
Um,
of them someplace?
yeah. But that's one of those things that is meaningful, right? Because that words of affirmation is one of my primary love languages, or is my primary love language. And so you're really good about recognizing that. But then, kind of tying back to you're always grateful. You always say thank you when I'm doing something. That's my words of affirmation love language. So it kind of like it really nicely complements whenever I feel like I'm doing something for you or for us, then you're always grateful and appreciative. So it kind of it's a great way to just keep that cycle going, because I think a lot of times in relationships people are like, well, I'll do something for you, but you do something for me first, and it doesn't work like that.
It's more for manipulation. They're doing things to manipulate the other person versus they actually care about the other person. That's where
Yep.
the leadership stuff comes into it, the personal growth, the foundation, understanding the principles, the why, like I was saying earlier, that's the part that matters. It
Hmm.
can't be to manipulate someone. It's got to be to motivate. And when you're talking about your spouse, I mean, the motivation is instead of manipulate people to do things for you or to allow you to do something, it's motivation, which means you're trying to motivate them to actually love you, to care about you. That's
Mm,
why you do it. But also because you care about them and love them. It's a two-way street, kind of like trust. It's a two-way street. But love and appreciation between the spouse is the same way. You got to do it because you want them to love you, but you also got to do it because you love them. And so that's got to be the why. If the why is anything other than that, it's manipulation.
hmm And I think a lot of times we don't even intentionally think about that, or we're not conscious of it. But a lot of times in relationships, I've known many couples who they are manipulating the other person. And again, maybe they're aware of it, maybe they're not, but it's why they're doing things. It's like, oh, let you do something nice for me and then I'll do something for you. Or if I do something nice for you, I expect you to do something nice for me in return.
Yep.
And that kind of destroys that just mutual agreement of, hey, we're both throwing this in, right? We're both rowing the same direction toward one another all the time.
Yep. And what's your other love language? Because I told them, acts of service and
Hmm.
quality time for me. We talked
Yep.
about gifts, the one that neither of us care about, and then you talked
Yep.
about which one have you talked about?
Words of affirmation. So
Yeah,
physical touch is my other love language, secondary love language. And you're really great about that, right? You're very intentional about hugs and, just making
first
sure
thing I
that
do in the morning, folks, find Ria. I walk through the house. Sometimes she's not here. She runs early in the morning, but I get up and I go looking for her. We got to have that morning hug.
I know. And for some reason, if somebody calls and that, you wake up and you jump on the phone automatically and I don't get that, I'm like, man, like I just don't, it's not the same. It's like, oh, it means so much, right?
But I find you
Uh,
later
you do. You
all
do.
day long.
Uh, yeah, and that's with people, the little things are the big things. And yeah, maybe it just doesn't sound like a big thing to make sure I get that morning hug, but it is a big thing. If you again stop making those intentional deposits, it's easy to get withdrawn in the relationship.
Yep. And so you just got to figure out, what's the other person value, and then you got to be humble enough. And I always tell people it's hard to swallow the truth if you got a mouth full of pride and ego. And so
Mm,
you got to get over yourself. It's what I'm saying, when I'm talking about that, usually in a leadership context, when somebody needs to get better. But it doesn't matter if it's in the personal relationship context, the same principles at play. You gotta get out of your own way and think about someone else. Just like I say, is it ain't about me, but it starts with me. Meaning our relationship ain't about me, but it starts with me from my frame of reference. Same way for you,
mm,
it starts with you from your frame of reference, but it ain't about me. It's about the relationship. But the relationship starts with me, again, from my frame of reference. I got to be the right person and do the right things in the right way at the right time for the right reason to build trust, maintain trust, first of all, and then to build trust, because it doesn't take but a little bitty slip up to lose a lot of trust. And I just want to share with everybody, Ria, if they're still listening, give them a little nugget here at the end. But I wasn't always like this. I wasn't even always like this in our relationship. But a lot of
right.
people don't know this is my fourth marriage, and we share this from the stage. I share it all the time because it's a great point. My other marriages were nothing like this. I mean, the only reason I can share this with integrity and authenticity is because we've been together 26 years. I figured out my problem, people. That's what I wanted to tell you. That's the nugget. I figured out my problem, and you're looking at it. ME, capital ME. Same problem I've had everywhere else in my life, with my relationship with my son, with coworkers, with bosses, with people in general in the world, people, strangers I don't even know sometimes back in the old days before I figured out what my problem was and got to work on it. But that's another thing that's really helped our relationship, Rio. 2008, we both, that's 18 years now, we both got very intentional about reading books related to personal growth, leadership development, and relationships, all sort of things like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely helped, and I was talking to a friend not too long ago, and she was talking, I think she's getting ready to get married, and so she was just saying, it's interesting to see how the two of you have grown over the years, but also grown together, and so that was interesting to see that outside perspective of someone who's seen us over the years as we've just both grown. And so, yeah, that really helps, because all of these principles, I mean, they apply at home, they apply at work, but when we are intentional about learning them, it gets easier to apply them, right? We can be conscious about that. Just like learning about the 5 love languages, if we didn't know each other had different love languages, it'd be more difficult to be intentional about, making those deposits into the relationship. Um, and then, I know, because I know quality time is one of your primary love languages. The other thing that I've found interesting is, because um, I'm not a big talker. Like I'm one of those people who I can just listen and I can absorb, and just bubbling naturally through the day. It just doesn't happen for me.
What
Now
she's
I
trying to
can
say, folks, is she can go all day without saying nothing.
I can, and I'm happy. Now I don't
She's
mind
okay with it.
talking. I'm okay with being quiet, but I don't mind talking. It's just something that I have to be conscious of, is because you're a quality time person. Me spending time in dialogue with you is a big way that you feel quality time. Like you want more interaction. You want me talking, and you want me listening too. But my point being, it's almost like I have to be intentional about, hey, make sure I share this, make sure I, communicate this, make sure I spend some time talking and listening, and, making sure that that quality time for you isn't just watching a movie, but actual engaging in interaction. And that was something that I still have to work. I'm sure I still don't get that right, especially like at the end of we've been speaking, and now we've been driving in the car for 5 hours. And at some point I'm done. I'm done extroverting for the day, and I know those are times when I could do um, more of that dialogue, more of that interaction. So all that to say, people, we are just being transparent with, hey, these are things we work on getting right, and sometimes we still get it wrong.
Yep, and I try to accommodate Ria for that. Like she said, a lot of times we finish up speaking. I'm fired up, I'm wound up, I got so much energy, and I want to talk about the 15, 20, 30 people I talked to and what they said. And the ones she talked to and what they said and all this stuff. And I can usually tell pretty quick she don't want to talk. She wants to be
Well,
quiet.
when I'm done, I'm
So
done, it's
it's hard
just
for me, but then I have to ride for an hour or 2 hours without saying nothing,
you
looking
have to
over
call
there, and
somebody else. You have to pick
that's
up the phone and call someone
and that
else.
doesn't help you any because you still got to listen. It helps me though. but
Ah,
but hey, before we go, I don't know how much longer we got. But there's one thing I wanted to share with folks.
sure.
I don't know how where it really fits. It doesn't fit with the love languages, I don't think. But I know you've probably already shared some of your story on here, your personal story.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
So people who know your background, do you remember what episode it was in case I need to go check it out?
Mm-mm.
But it's
No, I
you
do reference it back and forth. So,
on the Grace Everyday podcast, you've been sharing
uh
some.
huh, uh
Okay,
huh.
so you don't have but 7 or 8 episodes that's been out now, or 6 or something like that. So it's not that far back from this one. If you don't know Ria Story, but also they can go to riastory.com /TEDX, like the name TEDx, and learn
Mm-hmm.
about Ria's story. But we're not here to talk about that. But if you know her story, what I'm about to say matters more. But when I met Ria, she'd been through all the stuff she had been through, and we got together, and I helped. You want to call it rescue, whatever you want to call it. I helped you get out of that situation you were in, and I didn't know if you were going to stay with me or go somewhere else. You end up staying with me. But one of the things I wanted to know is were you with me because you wanted to be or because you had to be? Because
Mm,
you never had to be, but you didn't have a lot of options that were good options when you first started, living with me. So as
mm-hmm.
time passed, I wanted you to become independent where you didn't need me. I didn't want you to be dependent on me. But I worked with a lot of blue collar men in my life, and a lot of them, I've heard them talk about, when their wife starts college, they get insecure. The husbands get
Mm-hmm.
insecure because now the wife's
Mm-hmm.
going to go to college and she's going to be in class with all these men, and so they got trust issues apparently, but they may not have trust issues. The husband may just be insecure. Same thing probably happens in the other direction. If a husband decides to go to college and the wife's not going, or has got insecurity issues or trust issues, then they run into all kind of problems. But the one thing I wanted for Ria was I wanted to support her becoming independent where she didn't need me. Go to school, go do whatever you want to do in life, and I'm here to support you and help you and that kind of stuff. And I had a lot of issues I need to work on back those days because we had never discovered all these kind of books. But that's one of the things I actually got right. But I think that's important. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I would agree. That has always been part of just your personality, right? You are a champion for people because that's just how you're wired. You like to see that person go on and be independent. And you're right. I think that a lot of times that comes from you've got a lot of that personal security. And, to your point, that sometimes that's not always true in relationships on either side. And if I'm not secure in myself, then our relationship is never going to be as healthy because two healthy individuals can have a healthy relationship, right? But if one of those individuals isn't healthy or isn't coming from a place of security and self-worth in themselves, then they're going to, that's going to manifest like control in the relationship or possessiveness or passive
Jealousy.
aggressive behaviors, jealousy. Yeah, all those things absolutely are true. And then again, we kind of come back to that root cause for healthy relationships is as the individual growing and developing myself and who I am as a person. Because when I grow and I get better, our relationship gets better.
Yep. And the stuff you're talking about now, that's why I'm so passionate about helping people, individuals, not corporations. We do a lot of corporate stuff too, but
Sure.
individuals, because we know there's a lot of individuals who have bad bosses, and because this person haven't developed themselves, they have to keep going to work every day. They don't have to, but the consequences of not going to work are not too great. But if they'll develop
Right.
themselves and develop options, they can choose to fire the boss, go find them a new boss, whether it's in the same company or a different company, or start their own business. But it's the same thing. I want people to be independent. Only independent people can walk out of a bad situation, personally or professionally.
Mm,
You got to be independent, and that's one of the values that I have. Even with Eric, our son from my previous marriage, he I want him to be independent growing up, and he
yeah.
has been. I mean, I don't know many parents probably can say this, but I don't. I might be wrong. You might can help me if you can remember, Ria, but I don't think he'll be, what year are we in? I remember how old he is. I remember what year we in now. This is my problem. I can't keep up with the current years. 26, so he'll be 35 this year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall him ever asking for money since he got out of high school. Like, I don't recall that. And they probably not a lot of parents can say that.
Yeah, that's true. That's
I don't
true.
even remember. I don't remember if we've even helped him with money when maybe we heard that he needed some help. I don't remember anything like that. Do you?
I can remember sometimes we've helped. We've helped, but I don't think he's ever like asked or expected that. Certainly.
I don't recall it because it doesn't stand out. He definitely ain't never
Mm-hmm.
been the kid that's gonna come back and be asking for stuff and all kind of things
Mm-hmm.
like that as money wise, financial
Yeah.
help. He just always figured it out. That's his independent side. And anyway, that's a whole different conversation, but it all kind of ties together about the independent component.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are super good points. Well, any other closing thoughts on increasing influence with your spouse before we wrap up?
I just say the key is you got to be intentional about building trust.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, whatever that is. If your spouse is insecure, you got to be proactive and lead yourself well and able to deal with that. You may get tired of dealing with it at some point, and because you're independent, you got other options besides having to put up with an insecure, jealous, crazy spouse, no matter which way it's going, whether it's the husband or the wife. But if you love that person, the number one thing you got to do is work on yourself, so that whether they change or don't change, you're going to be better off, better equipped to deal with who that person is. And if you truly learn it and you truly get it right on the inside, it's going to show up on the outside, and you might rub off on them a little bit.
Yeah, love that. Well, share about your podcast briefly. So anyone who some of the content that you talked about or the principles you shared is resonating, because I mean, you're in that blue collar leadership space. So just touch on that before we wrap up.
Yeah, my podcast is Blue Collar Leadership. I've got nearly 500 episodes. Depends on when you listen to this. Maybe more than 500 episodes by that time. But lots and lots of content. Got some interviews. I got the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel and the Real People Getting Real Results. I have video interviews on there. The audios come out on my podcast, but the videos are on the Blue Collar Leadership YouTube channel. And I'm all over social media, all over most of them. Unfortunately, Ria got me on TikTok, so I'm on there too now. That added a lot of time to my life, keeping up with those little videos and editing those videos. But a lot of stuff out there, and it's reaching people who may not be on any of the other social media pages, especially the young folks, or what I've discovered is some reactive folks, some folks who need a lot of help. They're out there too, hiding behind some fake name or something, spewing all kind of nonsense, but they're out there. So I don't really like getting into that world, but I'm doing it for a better purpose. But that's about it, Ria. I would say anybody wants to talk to me, 334-728-4143 is my phone number. The one I talk to Ria on all day long whenever she's not here. Whenever she'll give me a minute. It ain't all day long, folks. That's a joke. You can tell it's a joke by the way Ria was laughing, right? But yeah, I put out my phone number for folks who want to talk about personal growth, leadership development. I've been reading like Ria has since 2008. I do it every day, and got lots of. I spoke with someone this morning and was sharing books to help him in a personal situation and also professional situation. Different books for different things. So anyway, I appreciate you having me on, Ria. Glad to see you doing this show for the Christian wives of blue collar guys, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining this episode. Maybe we should have Mack back for future episodes just to talk about the dynamics in relationships, because I think there's a lot of we could talk a long time about that. Certainly, plenty to talk about. So, thanks everyone for joining today. Just remember, life is tough, but God's grace is enough. So, talk to you next time.